You're listening to 105.9 The Region. I'm Jim Lang, and this is Health is Wealth with our good friend Dr. Mike Carosa. Good morning, Dr. Mike. How are you making out in your home studio office these days?
Jim, you know what? Thank God I'm safe and healthy here in my home studio, and we have the kids on a wonderful program along with my wife and myself. So, getting back on track, I think, and is key for a lot of people. It's getting back on schedule, even though we're from home, but it's keeping things. We're in this together, right, Jim? I mean, so this is our time, and we're encouraged to help flatten this curve and continue to work together. And some of these steps include us working from home, and then definitely practicing, these principles. How about yourself, Jim?
Good. I mean, we're doing our best. I'm getting better at washing my hands on a more regular basis, and we're trying to be good at physical and social distancing, but staying socially connected and avoiding crowds. But we're trying to eat as healthy as possible. The one thing I'm dying to know, I keep hearing conflicted stories of what's the best thing to wash your fruits and vegetables with before you eat them. And I've heard some really weird things that people are washing the outside of peelable fruits with. But what is the best thing to wash your fruits and vegetables with before you're consuming them?
I'm happy you asked that, Jim. I mean, so let's clear up some misinformation and let's get down to what actually works and what has been well documented and working well. So, of course, good old soap and water, that really trumps a lot. It's easy, and that's why they're saying hand washing, because we know if you do it for 20 seconds or more when you're washing your hands, you can sing the alphabet, happy birthday, whatever whatever your tunes are, but every 20 minutes you got to wash with soap and water. And this also shows to be very, very powerful for our disinfecting of our fruits and our vegetables, especially when they're coming into the grocery store. So what I encourage a lot of our listeners to do is do a lot what I do as well. Is I set up like a disinfection station, a disinfecting station, if you will, and I set this up in my garage where I have a table, and I don't put anything on it unless it's been cleaned. Obviously, we're doing our curbside, so thank you to Nature's Emporium for getting us what we need, but we're doing a curbside pickup, so we put in our orders on a weekly, Jim. We put it online, and we just, on a weekly basis, we just go up. It is so easy. We just get there, they put it in the back of my car, and I don't even have to wait like 3 seconds. When it's my time, I just go in, boom, 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 they put it in. It's so easy, very efficient, and I'm so grateful because we can still get all our organic fruits and veggies and our groceries. And so I'm really happy. And, of course, home to 3 stores here in New York region. So for all our listeners, we can definitely get access to this. And, Jim, just in case you haven't heard, I mean, the Nature's Emporium is also for the elderly. They're opening the stores an hour earlier for the elderly and immunocompromised, but they're also now, what they just launched is that they're doing free home delivery for these individuals, and I think that is amazing. So, again, thank you for places like Nature's Emporium to offer this. So when you're doing your curbside, you bring it into your garage. Definitely don't bring in your groceries right away inside the home. You just want to take extra precautions, and what works is 70% isopropyl alcohol spray. It has to be 70%, Jim. If it's not 70%, because the studies show 60 and 50 and 30 just don't work, it's 70% and up. And that's what we use in practice in medicine and how we disinfect, Jim. When you get a needle or some kind of injection or a B12,
so the little swab.
You get that little swab. Yeah, that little swab is 70% isopropyl alcohol because that kills. It's effective of killing many germs and preventing infection before you go in with a needle. You can't refute things like bleach. Bleach is going to kill it, we know for sure. So what you can do is you can do 1/3 bleach in water, and that will really work as well. But also, Jim, something that's really good is hydrogen peroxide wipes or spray. And so that really kills, and we know it kills the virus because, let's face it, Jim, I mean, the virus can last up to like 20 days on certain surfaces. So we got to be really careful. And, obviously you're not going to spray your vegetables with isopropyl alcohol. And so you're probably better off, of course, using some just soap and water. And that's what I do with my fruits and vegetables, and I'm just soaking them in. But, this is a good time where a lot of our patients and a lot of our listeners, we love to tell them to say, buying frozen fruits and vegetables are going to be the best option for you because those are easy to wipe out the surfaces and then you can put it in your freezer. Don't think, and Jim, another misconception is don't think because you just got the frozen fruits and vegetables and it comes in the pack, you don't have to wipe it down. Actually, we know for a fact through research that this virus can live in your freezer for a very long time. So you want to wipe these things before you just throw them so that you're not going to get killed. They get killed by heat, but it won't get killed by being in the freezer. So you wipe them down, but it is a lot easier, Jimmy. You put the packages of the frozen veggies and your frozen fruits, and you just put it in the freezer once you wipe them down. But again, having a disinfecting station just allows you to know what's clean, what's not, and then once you so when you spray something with 70% isopropyl alcohol, let's say if you got a box from Amazon or something, you want to spray down that box with isopropyl alcohol, so you can buy the alcohol in a gallon, and then you can put it in a spray bottle, and that's what I do. And you can spray the boxes and let it sit for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes is the actual time that's been well documented to be effective, and then you can now bring that container or that package in your home. But I would always suggest, you can spray it before you're handling it. Then once you open, of course, leave the boxes. And then sometimes there's boxes, Jim, within boxes, of course, and so these things need to get sprayed as well. So you must be very diligent here. And so just, with any of these things, and, really just wipe things down properly. And I think that'll keep everybody safe, and for us all doing our part here, I think is important.
It's still a question, but when you buy the 70% isopropyl alcohol, it'll say the 70% on the bottle?
Yeah. That's just, it's basically rubbing alcohol, Jim. But rubbing alcohol is, usually 70% or higher. So if it's higher than 70%, you're good. And most hand sanitizers as well, Jim, because right now there's a lot of things. I don't know if you've done your local shopping online, but there's a lot of things that they're running out of, and just they can't stock the shelves quick enough. And one of those is hand soap. And right, so we got to be careful. First of all, when you're ordering stuff, don't order. You don't want to order too much. Just order what you need to get through the week.
I agree.
Think, you mentioned that. You mentioned that in an earlier segment, Jim. You do the week-to-week like I do as well. And really, that's what we all have to do to play this part. We can't start hoarding things and let me go out and buy, 200 bottles of isopropyl alcohol and spray, and then not leave anything for everybody else. So
well, here's a reason why, Mike, we do it. I don't know about most homes, but there's a limited space how much stuff you can store in your home at any one time.
Exactly.
So we only buy,
Absolutely.
we buy what we need and just a little bit extra just in case of emergencies, but we can't go too crazy because we're not going to walk around with giant mounds of toilet paper and canned goods everywhere. We're not at that level.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. And I think that's a very good point. So, just shop for what you need. And then the grocery stores, and of course our local grocery store here, Nature's Emporium, they can stock the shelves accordingly.
Yeah.
And then that'll be ready for everybody. And I think those are really good tips for our listeners out there.
I really like the idea of the disinfecting station. That's something my wife and I are going to talk about. And I like the idea about a delivery, just giving the quick spray with the isopropyl alcohol outside, let it sit there, then bring it inside. And then that you're safe. That's a great safety tip for a lot of people who order stuff on Amazon.
Yeah, and sometimes the boxes of these things, you just want to make sure they're well sealed, and then maybe you don't have to put. So, for example, a cereal box, Jim. A cereal box, obviously, you can just, once you spray it down, you can just leave the cereal box and just take the package out of the cereal box and then bring that into your home. And it is a really good pointer, but we have to try to look at all angles here to keep everybody safe, not only within our families, but within the community.
And you mentioned Nature's Emporium. A special thank you to Nature's Emporium and all the staff working at grocery stores in the region. My wife has a friend who works in the grocery industry, and they are working themselves to the bone to keep things stocked, to keep produce and canned goods on the shelves. It's been hard for them as well, and they're doing some great work in the community.
Yeah, and I thank you to them as well.
Dr. Mike, again, we're thrilled to be joined by a legend of Canadian sports, one of the great athletes this country's ever produced. If you think about the resume, 3-time world champion, 7-time Canadian champion, amazing figure skater, multiple Olympic silver medalist, and one of the only athletes I know who could win a silver medal at the Olympics with one leg with a torn groin, and he did it. His name is Elvis Stojko. How did you do it? By the way, Elvis, I remember the interview like it was yesterday, you talking about how you skated with one leg, and people going into the final skate about your injury, but I'm still amazed how you can win a silver medal in figure skating on one leg.
I don't know. Now that I look back on it, it was a pretty crazy time. I had great people around me. My coach, Doug Lee, who was just, when I had injured it at the Olympics, when I actually tore it into practice, the morning of the short program, got off the ice, and he didn't have any time for sympathy. He goes, okay, are you going to do this or no? And I said, I got to ask the doctor, will this ruin my career? They said, no, you're just going to have to deal with a lot of pain. And I said, okay, let's do it. And we had my acupuncturist, Susan McCrae, there at the time. The German team doctor who was friends with my choreographer, Ishi Kessler, whose also background was German, I had trusted over the years. I became really good friends with, and he helped me through a lot of stuff there at the time. And I couldn't take any shots because it was less than 24 hours before the competition. You know, there was no cortisone. There was none of that I could take. So they had to give me something natural for my leg. But, I mean, it really didn't take away the major pain of it all. Even with the adrenaline going, I could still feel it. It was all mental training. It was just simply, I had a different psychologist ask after, like, where did you place yourself in your mind? And I said, well, I treated the pain like an emotion. So, the emotion will give you a feeling. And when I was in competition, you have so many different feelings and different, anxiety, fear, doubt, all these things that would come in. And I would train to be able to block these things, to block them out. Or you could use them, anger or anything like that. You use it as an energy and you focus it. So the pain, what I used it as was something to basically piss me off. So I used it as a thing to keep me grounded, but try not to allow it to change my timing, because I didn't want to, like, it's like, you're beaten, you know what I mean, like a beaten dog or something like that, and they react to a certain thing, and because the pain was there, my body would react a certain way, and I had to block out that reaction so that I could block it out like an emotion. And I used my martial art training. One thing I do have is I do have a high pain threshold, but even with that, it was very difficult. In the long program, there was a moment that I remember very clearly skating down for the second triple axel. I was skating right by the judges, and I almost stopped. And I remember there was a moment, that particular moment, it was like everything slowed down. And it was like hindsight was there. And I was like, I would regret this for the rest of my life if I stop. And all I have to do is to bear another 50 seconds. And if just stay on your feet, and you will make it to the end. And I made the choice at that point to just push through and deal with it. My body eventually healed after. Emotionally, it tore me up for many, many years. It was something I had to rebound from and rebuild from. But it was, overall, it was just focusing on how I could use the pain as a catalyst to get emotion to drive me through and have the willpower. So I used all of those components to try to get me through from A to B, and that's basically how I did it.
We mentioned about eating right for your blood type, and I always talk about this to a lot of our patients as well. It's a very good place to start, but it's not the whole story, correct?
Correct. I used it as sort of, it helped guide me in a direction. It opened up another aspect to look at. It even has, the Japan. I used that actually when I was teaching a little bit in Mexico, where, O blood types, they can push hard. They deal with stress by working out harder. They deal with it that way. Where A, on the other spectrum, A, like my wife, is more like yoga-based, more relaxed, more meditative, that type of thing. So it helped gauge, and I watched the different skaters I'd work with, and I'd see, I'd ask them what their blood type was. And I think it's very important. People should know what their blood type is anyways, just to understand that. But it gave me a guide, and one of the guides was simply eating more gamey meats, which was something that I hadn't tried before. And I was like, I'm going to try this a little bit more now. And that was probably one of the main things I got from that, just simply from reading the books and following that. That was the main thing from there that I got, which was huge. And the second thing from that was actually avoiding chicken for me, which was a big thing. We had talked about it with the uric acid and things like that, was actually detrimental to me because it created basically like a lactic acid buildup before I even started working out. I was at a deficiency right there because of the lactic acid. So my muscles are always fighting that on a regular basis. But certain foods like dairy for me, for instance, and chicken is actually very detrimental.
You mentioned drinking alkaline water. Forgive me, Elvis. I think I know water, but why is that water better than, say, other spring water? What is special about that maybe we should be drinking more in our own diet every day?
Yeah, and it's something that comes from the machine that I have from a company called Enagic. It's called Kangen Water, Kangen. Bringing back to origin, it's a Japanese company, and it's not just the alkalinity, but it's the antioxidants within the water. There's also the clustering of the molecules of the water are very small, so that they penetrate the cell membranes. Your body absorbs it much faster. So it has 3 very specific properties, not just the pH level. But the pH level itself, you can get an 8.5, a 9, and a 9.5 pH, which is quite high. And it just helps your body regulate all the acidic buildup, helps flush out things, free radicals, all these things that happen in the body, whether it be from stress, from working out, from daily life, just environmental toxins, things like that. Having proper water, alkaline water, helps flush that out because we tend to need to be a little bit more alkaline. When you get more detailed, of course, Dr. Mike, there's different parts of the body that need to be more acidic and more parts of the body need to be more alkaline, but we're always fighting being acidic because of the environment that we're in, because of the world that we're in. We're always fighting that. And the water was the basis to help flush all that out. Also, when I drink the water with supplementation, it actually amplifies it. So my body absorbs and pulls it all in. So whatever I'm taking, it really helps with that. And if people want more information, they can message me on Instagram about the water, and it's a pretty phenomenal basis to what we have for our diet.
And health. And I think I'd like to enlighten some of our listeners about this. I mean, having acidic conditions and predisposing our body to acidic conditions. So just so our listeners are aware, acidic conditions is what our body will be more fit, like it goes to very easy. And so what we have to do is we have to turn off this mechanism, something really simple. And I'll just use this as an example. I remember treating a young female in her 30s, and she had some issues with inflammation. And the biggest thing is every time she came into my office and we were testing the urine, we were measuring, because the best way to test acidity. So by the way, also, acidity is measured on a scale of 5 being more acidic, and then as you go up, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 being more alkaline. And so besides changing the diet, so we put her on more of an alkaline diet, more green leafy vegetables, changing her more anti-inflammatory foods, but we really couldn't change the acidity of this individual. And for the life of me, I mean, I've been practicing for over a decade. I can remember this patient like it was yesterday. It was very challenging. It was not until we got this patient alkaline water that we truly started changing her health. And the thing with the alkaline water is that alkalinity is prone to things like, so will defend you against things like inflammation, because when you're more acidic, you're more prone to inflammation, infection, and more issues. And so when you're more alkaline is when you can protect your body, and then you can be a little bit stronger and more resilient to these. So I'm a huge proponent. I'm happy you brought this up, and I think it's huge. I think a lot of our listeners, alkaline water right now is at an all-time high in terms of what people are looking into. But, Jim, you mentioned the average drinking water, spring water. If you start thinking about it, it's not just the cleanliness now, not just about, the fact that these waters are really not so clean anymore due to the runoff in the streams. So spring water is not the best way. So we need some kind of filtration. And the ones in which that add alkalinity to it are the key. And you want to get those levels above 8. And if you can, it'll actually reap huge, huge benefits on the body, including fighting things like infection and helping for athletes and muscle turnover.
Elvis, I think there's probably a lot of young athletes, not just figure skaters, maybe someone like Gabby Delman in Newmarket, or other athletes listening, wondering how can I stay in shape and kind of your shape in this sort of COVID-19 workout at home dry training. Are there a couple go-to exercises that they can incorporate maybe that'll keep them going?
Oh, it's again, it's I know a lot of these athletes, they work with different trainers. Like I have the exercises that I have in my regimen are a combination of, kung fu exercises, a few from training exercises that I've had from my other trainer that works with MMA fighters and so forth, and some exercises have come up on my own based on what I need. So what I work my upper body in a way, because I do dirt biking and I do some other stuff, so I want to have my upper body nice and balanced and strong, but not bulky, because if I'm top heavy, then I'm off balance for jumping and for skating, so I want my center of gravity a little bit lower. So I do things that are going to give me a muscle explosion and power, but not bulk. Now my legs, again, the same thing. I'll have it for endurance, but also power. If I go too much endurance, then I lose power, and if it's too much strength involved, then I lose the endurance. So it's that happy medium in between. So it's a type of a workout that I try to keep balanced in the center, so that it's, for me, doing a program now, instead of, back in the day I'd skate a long program was 4.5 minutes. Now if I'm doing a show program, maximum 3.5 minutes, in that zone. So if I'm working out, I try to do segments that have that length of time, and I'll do them in chunks. It'd be like, wind sprints or something that will keep that my heart rate above, honestly, it has to stay above 160. So my heart rate will be between 160. Sometimes it peaks out at like 190 on the exercise that I'm doing. So I want to stay in that window. And that's the thing where, a marathon runner, some of their heart rate's going to be a little bit lower. But for that peak energy, that explosive energy, I need to kind of stay in that pocket for a number of minutes. And that's a hard training. It's called power endurance training. And that's basically what I do in between. And I don't push it every day because it's very high to have that type of heart rate. And I'm very lucky to be able to do that at 48 years old, because some people are like, oh my God, that's too high, you're in the red zone and so forth. But that's just how my body is. I can push within that zone, no problem, because I just want to be able to stay in that zone so that when I get back on the ice to train, I can keep that up. Because if I've got a heart rate monitor on, and if I do a 45-minute session on the ice, my heart rate will, start out, at maybe 110, and then I get into the regimen, I run a program, then I do some jumps. I'm anywhere between 125 and 190 on the heart rate through that whole 45-minute period.
Wow.
Most of it will stick around 140. It'll stay in that space. And so I try to emulate that off the ice so that my heart rate, stays within that. It was funny because I was doing off-ice training. I was working my upper body, and I hadn't been on my dirt bike in a while. And I got jumped out of my bike like last week, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I can ride like for 2 hours hardcore, because I had done all this dry land training before. I'm like, yeah, it works.
I love dirt bike riding.
Yeah, awesome.
And for our young listeners, for our young, obviously, athletes, and for moms and dads who have their youngsters training for hockey and any kind of skating, I mean, is there some kind of ice system? Because right now it's very challenging during these trying times, of course, to find things like ice time and, of course, finding available rinks and being around. Is there some kind of ice system that you can recommend right now for people at home so that they can sort of at least get out there?
Yeah, there's I'm trying to get some pieces sent to my house, actually. There's a company called Can Ice, and we love the product. It's amazing. My wife works with them, and they have it's a higher end product. There's no shavings whatsoever. It's a synthetic ice that you can click together. A lot of NHL guys are picking up on it now, and they're installing it at home, or if they have, they got their $1 million mansions, so they can put it in. But you can put it in your basement. It's called Can Ice. If you can message me on Instagram if anybody's interested in that. Some people are getting, just pieces of it for shooting pucks or just skating on, just to feel. The drag coefficient on it's amazing, because usually with regular synthetic ice, you really have to push to kind of break that drag and then get the glide. Where this stuff, I was blown away, because I hate skating on synthetic stuff. There's nothing is better than ice to glide, but this was the best stuff I've ever been on. And we've been helping out. A number of people have been asking about it. Down in the States, they had called up, some people that are working with some NHL people, some hockey guys, and they were asking. So I've been getting them connected with my wife and with the CEO here. He's in Mississauga, and getting prices for people. But if they're interested, it's a great way to stay in shape and at least keep the feel, because that's the thing about dryland training. You can dryland training all you want, but you lose the feel. It's skating is I call it perishable skill. So it's just like I relate it to a violinist, the best of the best. You take a day off, you notice it. You take 2 days off, your coach notices it. You take 3 days off, everybody else notices it. It's something that needs to be constantly honed and constantly there. And that's the tough part. That's what a lot of skaters are going to be fighting when they jump back on the ice. It's going to feel weird. They'll be in shape, but to be in skating shape is a different thing. So this product is phenomenal.
Dr. Mike, before we wrap up the show, if our listeners want to connect with you, get more information about AppleMed, how can they find you?
First, they can call us at 905-417-4000. We're answering our phones, and we're there for all our patients and anybody who needs some help and guidance during this tough and trying times. Feel free to call us or send us an email at info@applemed.ca, or check us out on Instagram at AppleMed Clinic, and we're here for you.
That's our show for this week. If you missed any part of health as well, you can go to our website, 1059theregion.com. Dr. Mike, thank you. Alva Stoico, 1,000 thank yous. You have educated and enlightened us in a lot of ways, and continue good health with you and the family.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure, and health and happiness to everybody out there, and staying safe, and doing what we can do while we're home. Working out, eating right, and enjoying our families and our loved ones.
Well said.
Thank you, Elvis, and thank you, Jim. Thank you.